National also warns the government does not have a lot of wriggle room. Over the next 4 years, the Finance Minister Grant Robertson has about $6.6 billion of unallocated spending to play with. National's finance spokesperson Stephen Joyce says that's going to be very tight when dealing with ongoing spending pressures, including wage demands from public servants. For Morning Report, Patrick O'Mara.
And listening to that was the aforementioned Grant Robertson. Good morning to you, Minister.
Morning, Guyan.
If we could get to that economic growth a little later, I want to start with the child poverty measures. This was a big part of this package, wasn't it? And the aim is to halve child poverty by 2020, taking, nearly 90,000 children out of poverty. Will paying that money alone lift them out of poverty?
Well, it'll make a really good start, won't it? I mean, we know that one of the big drivers, obviously, of why children are in poverty is the income of the households that they live in. And so we're making sure that those families are the ones who get targeted by those aspects of the package. Obviously, there are other things that go along with it, including improving the quality of the housing that those children are living in, and we've already passed legislation to improve the minimum standards there. So there's a range of measures that will help people lift out of poverty. The measure that the previous government used, the one that we're using for this, shows that when the package is fully rolled out, it will nearly halve child poverty, and we're very proud of that.
And the measure you're using is 50% of the median income, right?
That's correct.
And so when I look at that from the MSD official figures, that has a gross figure of about 91,000 as a median household income. Is that the number that you're working from?
I don't have that exact number in front of us, but it is exactly the same measure that was being used by the previous government.
Is that roughly right? Just because, I mean, I just want to give people an idea of the sorts of amounts that we're talking about here. Is that, I'm looking at Brian Perry's work.
Yeah, and Brian Perry's work is the basis of it,
yeah.
Yes.
So a gross of 91,000, anyone who's under half of that, so anyone under about 45, they're in poverty at the moment. Does that sound about right to you?
Look, it does sound about right. I don't happen to have those numbers in front of me.
I just want to give people an idea of what we're talking about.
Sure,
here in terms of
that's
money.
right. But I think what's really important is governments have to measure themselves against something. And as you know, the Prime Minister intends to introduce legislation so that we have clear indicators that we can measure ourselves against that will be put into law. At the moment, what we're doing is so we can compare apples with apples.
And I'm just trying to get listeners to be able to determine, because no one carries around the median equivalised annual household income in their head. So I'm trying to give people a sense of what we're talking about here. So, and it leads on to this question, is if that median household wage increases over time, as I imagine you would hope it would significantly, then anyone who's under 50% of that drops back into poverty, don't they? So
what happens is when these projections are done, that those wage increases are forecast into the model. So actually, as you go forward from here, that is factored in. It's obviously updated at each point, but we can only take the measure from the moment that we're at right now, and we're comparing ourselves here with a previous package. We're able to say that actually we can lift a significantly higher percentage of people out of poverty. Obviously, it keeps being revised as we go on.
Yeah, would you, though, link those benefits for families to average wage growth, as has been suggested by the Children's Commission?
So
that's what I'm getting at.
For the Best Start payment, what we've said there is that will be calculated the same way that other similar kind of tax credits are calculated, which is that it gets increased after a 5-year lot. So you look at the average inflation over 5 years, and then it's increased at that rate. We've committed to do that for Best Start.
Okay, under your package, by the end of the term, there'll still be 90,000 children in poverty, right?
Approximately, yes, and you know, that's the challenge we've got, is to continue to work on reducing that.
Doesn't that bring into the spotlight two of these other measures in your package, which go to everyone, including the rich, the baby bonus and the heating payment? I mean, why would you give a rich family who has a child $60 a week when they're a millionaire, for example?
So what we're saying here is that all families have costs in the first year of life. You know, that's a time at which people are needing to balance a lot of different things in their life, work obligations and having a new child come into their lives. You and I, Guy, both grow up at the same time when the family benefit was available to all New Zealanders. It's actually about saying we all have these responsibilities. Then with the Best Start package...
but we don't always have the same needs, though, do we?
That's right. But then as I was about about to say, as we move into the rest of the Best Start package in the second and third years, it is targeted to those on middle and low
I appreciate
incomes.
That. And they get it for longer, don't they?
They do. They get it for another 2 years. So this is actually a payment that's about making sure we recognise when we can make the biggest impact on a child's development. We're using the evidence actually from the Children's Commissioner, who did in fact recommend a universal payment in this area. We're taking that on for the first year and then targeting it for years 2 and 3. And I think you've heard from the social sector groups, this will make a huge difference.
It's the same with the winter heating payment, though, isn't it? We heard reporters asking Winston Peters this. I mean, the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand earns $335,000 or so. Does he or anyone else on that sort of income need a $700 winter heating allowance? Do they actually need it?
If people don't feel they need it, they don't need to get it, and they can opt out of getting it, and that's available for anybody on a superannuation.
Would you encourage them to do so?
It's completely up to those people. If they don't feel they need it, then that's fine. But the point about this is that people on fixed incomes and low incomes with high cost of living, increasing cost of living, have been struggling to heat their homes.
I know they
and
have,
we've got
but this isn't
1,600
the point
people
here, is it?
dying in hospital each year because their homes aren't warm enough.
Yeah, and people care about that stuff. The basis for my argument here is, why are you leaving 90,000 children in poverty while giving millionaires a heating allowance? What's the answer to that?
What we're doing is halving child poverty and making sure that people on fixed incomes get that additional funding to be able to heat their homes. We could spend a lot of time targeting a payment like the winter energy payment, spend a lot of money doing that, or actually just recognise that there are a lot of our older citizens who need a bit more support along with low-income people.
Fair enough. I just want to finish on the economic growth stuff. You've had business confidence plummet, really, since you've taken over to levels not seen since the GFC. You've got, in the ANZ outlook, a net 39% of business pessimistic about the year ahead. If business isn't confident, can they deliver the kind of surpluses you're looking at here? Because that relies on tax-taken business performance to a large degree, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I've got great confidence in New Zealand businesses, and I've been talking to them in recent weeks. And you know, there's been a change of government that automatically creates some uncertainty for people. We've now put out there where the accounts are, what our plans are, and I can see that confidence bouncing back. Now, I believe that New Zealand businesses are well positioned. We've got a package of incentives to help grow the economy, lift the minimum wage, support growth in the regions, and I'm very confident we'll be able to see the economy grow sustainably and actually finally see people get a fair share in that growth.
Thanks very much for your time this morning. Do appreciate it. That is the Finance Minister, Grant Robertson, and it's 7:22.
State Highway 1 north of Kaikoura will reopen today after being closed for more than a year because of the